again. Yep. Where were we? Sort of around the third step, yes?
Around the third.
I wanted to go over, because this was, in my third year of sobriety, I was asked to lead this workshop in San Francisco at this place called the Dry Dock. It's a place where they hold meetings all day, famous place. You ever go there, it's on Greenwich, off of Fillmore in the Marina area. Well, and so we do like a 4-week thing on fourth step, like, resentment, fear, harms unto others, looking at sex, and then a review. And then I looked at this chapter quite a lot, how it works. And then things were happening as they do in one's head and stuff. And about 9 years sobriety, I think I came upon that sentence which I was using, and I saw it in such a different light. And the funny thing is, it's never returned to any other way of seeing it. It's stayed like this since. So again, it's on page 64, that third paragraph. Being convinced, again, is like a present tense. Yeah, it's not I was convinced or I will be convinced, but being convinced, in other words, I'm in the state of being convinced that self manifests in various ways, is what has defeated us. And then it goes, we considered its common manifestations, so resentment is the #1 offender. So in this view, you're looking, like when I would lead people in the fourth step, I would have the view that you're looking to see how self has defeated you, yeah, by looking at its manifestations. Not claiming them to be mine, but this foreign installment, let's say. Because what happened when my mind changed this time, I saw self as other, yeah. I saw it as foreign, and the next possibility that arose that hadn't been available until this moment was I could be free from it. And when that idea came into me, it showed to me in my history I had been trying to be free as it for many, many, many years in a lot of different spiritual modalities, yeah? It showed it to me, like in 1 second, it showed me years of examples of this dilemma of I was trying to be free as a self instead of from a self, yeah? And why would I want to be free as something that I'm not unless I was identified as that? Yeah? So I humbly believe that the root of the problem is an activity. And I put it into a sentence, which is the mental processes, and I'm talking about the thoughts and then the misperceptions of, because we see a lot of times things that aren't happening, and then the memories. If you look at the thought system pictures you and I as a body. So when you're thought about as a body. So when I go into memories, the only way I can be pictured 5 years ago is as a body. I can't be pictured as a spirit. How would I catch it in the frame? Yeah? Where would I say I started or I stopped? So the mental state, the thought system, and the memories picture us as body. And so when the mental state is obsessed about you in the past, it's remembering you as a body now. You see it? It's an activity. The remembering isn't in the past. You're remembering the past to be remembered as a body now. And then the same thing, when you're worrying about yourself in the future, that self is a body, you pictured, yeah? The worrying about us in the future is a way of remembering self now. You see, as an activity, the mental state uses time to promote a story. Yeah. It doesn't have a present existence. So it goes, its logic goes like this: I was there, I will be there, therefore I am here now. So the selfing gets a sense of being real by being remembered as real and being worried about as going to be real. Yeah? So the mental state now becomes the dominant theme. So we're living in a self-centered manner. The whole system is centered on self. Yeah, that's why it's a failed system. And in the big book, it says, in the fear inventory, why do we have so much fear today? Thank God he doesn't let us answer, or the book would have been 1,800 pages of stories. And he gives us the answer. Isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? So if you follow the statement, fear is an effect of self-reliance. Now we believe fear causes a lot of shit, and it seems to do it, but it's not a cause in and of itself. It's an effect. So reliance on self promotes fear because self is a failed system. So when you're relying on a failed system, an appropriate response would be fearful of it not working. Yeah. Now, that fear isn't going to lift because the failed system is a failed system. So there's always going to be a suspicion that it's not going to fucking come out the way I think. Yeah? So that it promotes anxiety based on its failure. And what can a failed system show us? It can show us it's fucking failed. So you'll stop relying on it. But it's impossible to stop relying on it if you're identified as its center. Because reliance on self is more, see, I did tons of cocaine, but I never thought I was cocaine. Yeah? We're starting at the point of thinking we're the drug we've been imbibing through the mental obsession. We start at the point that we're the self, which is the disease of alcoholism. You know, where it's like we're so beyond addiction, we're like the addict that's taking coke as coke. Yeah? I mean, it's gone that far in a way. So if you see how it happens, it gives a possibility it won't be happening as much, yeah? And again, you'll really only know the solution from the problem from the solution. When you get relief, it will tell you why you didn't seem to have relief. It's sort of like, you know, here in Idaho today, I bet you no one in this town is talking about the effects of gravity, you know? And if they are, they're blaming it on a steep hill or the stairs or whatever, yeah? And there could be someone who is a professor of gravity, writes tons of books about gravity, does tons of talks about gravity, and he becomes a circuit speaker about gravity, and you can sort of identify with it. But really, all you need to do to know gravity is to go into an anti-gravity chamber. You know, if you got relief from the pressures of gravity right now, you would know what gravity is, yeah, by its absence. It's the same fucking thing. Yeah? If you can see self and not look from self, you'll see self as exactly what they were talking about in the program, the root of the problem. And to me, it's just a misidentification. The mental state is in the act of being identified as a self. So anytime you go into the narrative stream up there, it's about you. Sometime in the past, sometime in the future, yeah? So it's always in the act. The beautiful thing is, if you are spirit, you cannot be yourself. No thing cannot be a thing, yeah? That's the good news. So the self can never complete its mission, the act of being identified, but it can seem to complete its mission if it convinces us that we're a self. Haven't you ever wondered about the statement? I don't know if you use it here, but we have one of the acronyms for fear, false evidence, appearing real. Mm-hmm. That's an incredible statement because How could false evidence appear real unless it appeared real to what's real? Reality is the only thing that could give false evidence the meaning of reality, obviously. So we're reality, in a sense, yeah? We're making mountains out of molehills all the day. We're taking false evidence to appear real and then responding to that, which is not a response, it's a reaction. And there's the slavery of self. But isn't it us that make it seem to be so? Yeah? If false evidence appears real, who the hell is it appearing real to? It can't be real, can it? But if it appears real to us, and I believe we are reality, it will seem to be as real can fucking be. That's why I can't, you know, I had this, my first fairy princess in AA, I had maybe 9 months, she had 6 months. Marriage made in heaven. She stayed sober for 20-something years, wrote books, very bright, helped a lot of people. She started to drink again, and she's been in and out for 8 years now. She cannot fucking get it. She's dead now. She killed herself last week, a week and a half ago. And why would people kill themselves? They must be identified with that which is driving them crazy, and the whole fucking ship has to go down to get relief. Yeah. If you can see it as something other than you, you'll be able to entertain freedom, and that freedom will be directed correctly from self. Your freedom won't be, your urge or your desire to be free won't be co-opted by the parasite and turned into another form of slavery. So, yeah, so if you see a resentment, it's a manifestation of self, and how the parasite extends it here and gives it weight and length is we identify it. We identify it as the resenter, yes? So the mental state's first movement is claiming. That's all it does. So a thought appears, and the thoughts, it's like this. Here's a thought, tons of them going on, and you're hearing them during the day. They're thoughts, but the mental state holds the thought differently. It says it's my thought, yeah? Now the thought is used to point to the owner of the thought. So each thought that goes by, like a mule without a tail is stuck on it, my thought, and then that tail points to this imaginary someone, and that is the act of being identified as self, being reinforced all day. So all the feelings are being preceded by a feeling, by a statement called my feeling. Yeah? It's like here, if we put money up here, sex up here, let's say sex up here, money, sex. Everyone would have a response to it, just, based on their condition. I'm going to change the whole meaning of the word without changing the word. My money. So here, I look at everyone here, I wish you to have all the money, I wish you to be rich as hell, but I don't want you to have any of my money. See? The my changes the meaning of the money. The my changes the meaning of the problem. The my changes the meaning of the girlfriend. You're going out with a woman, it's fun, she suddenly becomes your girlfriend, and then you're up on stalking charges a few months later. The my changes fucking everything. That is the unseen act of the parasite. It's using what happens here, being alive, thoughts, feelings, and actions, and it's using them to imply, to assume, to point to that you're the thinker, the doer, and the feeler. That's the bondage of self. The bondage, he doesn't say it, the book, you're bonded to self. That would be like, self would be a chair, and you would be this, and you'd be bonded to it by a pair of handcuffs, let's say. And if someone could loosen you, you would leave, and that chair would be here, and you'd be free from the chair. But bondage of is different than bondage to. Bondage of self is an activity. Because there is no self to be bound to. It's the bondages of self. You're entertaining everything as a self. And and in that entertaining, everything that's happening is being used to reinforce the bonding of that idea. So now suddenly you're living life as self, but that life you're living is an interpretation based on what's not happening. It's like a slavery, really, if you see it. So, if you can, my feeling, because this is how it worked for me, if you can see that which is driving you fucking crazy as other than you, a new possibility will become available to you. And if you do the fourth step in the spirit of seeing how self defeated you, instead of looking at your fears and your resentments and your acting out, it will go a lot longer to reveal the root of the problem. Usually. Because you will see how self defeated you. If you see how self defeated you, instead of looking from the defeat, you'll be seeing it, the defeat will change dramatically. You'll lose interest in self, and therefore the defeats won't have the power they used to have. And you can't lose interest in self by being interested in losing interest in self. It won't fucking work. Because then you fall into the thing of self trying to get out of self again. It's fucking impossible. But if you lose interest in self, there's no boomerang effect. You will gain interest in others, like it says in the book. Yeah? You will now contribute to life. You'll feel a conscious presence. All of those things will be an activity you'll be feeling. Not something you're reading, but you'll actually, to me, the whole book described as all descriptive. I've experienced everything it's said in that book. All the descriptions of how the solution is going to express, and all the fucking solution, all the expressions of the problem. I've had it's the most living book I ever run into. Because I have an intimacy with every freaking thing that's stated in there. Yeah? And they were getting the similar relief that we're getting now. Because they weren't dealing with Bill and Bob, they were dealing with the same parasite. And when I go to AA meetings, I am not identifying with who you are. I'm identifying with what's taking you over, because I've lived under the same fucking tyranny. I know what it's like to live under alcoholism. And so when you share what it's like, I resonate, identify, because I've lived under the same tyranny. But we're not going to get out of it unless we see it for what it is, and it ain't us. We are distinctly different than that mental aberration, I'm telling you. Yeah. You can live life not led by thought. You can live life by pause. The pause is what precedes thoughts. You can live from there. Not as like a vague intermission through tons of fucking mental horror stories, you know, oh fuck, but as a point of starting, yeah? Because the pause, in my sense, is us finally showing up for our life, really. I think that's truly what we are, is that space. I do. And when you finally show up in your life, I'm telling you, if there was that old story about the genie with the bottle, what I would ask for is 3 pauses. If I would have had 3 pauses in my life, my whole life would look fucking different. Like if I didn't go to that bar, I wouldn't have got run over by that fucking Monte Carlo. Whatever. Of course it can't happen. But the power of pause is fucking unbelievable. Why would you want to keep it so infrequent? Why not live there? From there? Why not have intuition be the leading point instead of thought? Thought is a failed system. It doesn't freaking work. There's other modalities of mind that aren't based on self-centeredness. They are. And they are inclusive and win-win and broad. And there's you can enjoy peace of mind. You will know serenity and understanding. I mean, it'll be living for you. And if it ain't living for you, what's the fucking point? This, to me, AA is not a self-help program. It's not a program of remanaging your life through the 12 steps. It's a program of submitting. You submit yourself to this program and you'll be changed. You're not changing fucking anything. You'll be changed. You'll be directed. And then those longings and wants will be correctly directed instead of misdirected by the self. Because that's what it does. It claims every quality you have and fucking misdirects it, mutates it. So now you think this is going to be freedom, and then it becomes another form of bondage. Now you can't leave the house unless you meditated. I mean, did I do that when I was 3 years old? Oh, Mom, I got to meditate before I go out. I fucking went out and played. Now, meditation was meant to sort of be freeing, becomes another form of slavery. I know people, they got to rush home at noon to make sure they sit. I missed the morning. See, that's enough. Isn't that fucking slavery? And they do it, and it's not only in our group. I go to other spiritual groups, man. They would have been so much better off they never ever heard the word enlightenment, because they're just mind fucking constantly about they're not enlightened, or someone they think shouldn't be enlightened is enlightened. It's just insane. It's the same thing. It's just insane. Enlightenment, the definition is cessation of all suffering, and it's being used as a topic to promote more suffering. This is what happens when self fucking claims something. It claims a beautiful thing and it worries about it. And if you're in selfing, you're in time. So if you do have peace now, it ain't going to last long, because you're going to think, well, will I have peace tomorrow? There goes the fucking peace. You cannot... Slavery is not only of the thought system, it's of time. The thought system is drenched in time. Self, there is no self without time, and there's no time without self. It's true. Self has to be remembered. It doesn't have its own generating light. It has to be fucking remembered. And that's the process of the mental state. Why do you have 70,000 thoughts a day? I was a house painter. I needed maybe 15. What are the 69,985 thoughts doing? They're reinforcing the fucking of you, the idea of you being a self. It's all they're fucking doing all day. They're all about you, directly or indirectly. So the third step, leading to the fourth step, I found much more relief when I saw it, because you'll see the patterns of how self has defeated you if you do a survey, yeah? And you'll also see whatever self takes to be important in your life, that's where most of its expressions will be. Like for women, if it's body image, that's where they have all their anxiety and resentments, yes? If it's not surrendered. So self, you can tell self by its minions, you know? Where its minions sort of coagulate, then you realize selfing that. See, to me, like when I did the inventory, all my sexual behavior wasn't about sex, it was about self-esteem. The way I felt self-esteem, without any evidence I should have any, by what I was doing, was if a pretty woman would go horizontal with me, that would be, oh, I must be fucking okay. And maybe it would last for 4 nights. Or I'd see the mole on her face, and that would disqualify her, and then I'd have to find another one. It became another form of slavery all fucking day. Same, it's all distorted. Self is sitting on the instinctual agenda, and it's managing it. Needs have turned into wants. I live in a very rich place in Marin, and the people who are... I go to the city and someone's worried about if they're going to have that refrigerator cardboard box to sleep in that night. And the exact same experience, the same worry, is being demonstrated in Marin. People worried about the 4th house they're buying. Has nothing to do with anything. The mental state has taken the basic needs and blew them up and turned them into incredible, and a 4th house will be just like a fucking refrigerator box. The person's having the same calamity, but they have 3 other residences. They should be totally chilled out and be on a level of enough, but are they? No. And enough is the most beautiful world here. If all your gauges can hit enough, then your mind is free to roam. And I'll tell you, man, you can be a free-range alcoholic, man. You can just go off. The mind is unbelievable. I don't mean the mental state, mind. There is peace and serenity in a lot of fucking aspects that you can get a taste of if you're not preoccupied by yesterday and tomorrow. If you're really here, a lot gets delivered. And I'm saying you cannot not be here. I truly believe, you know, there used to be a run of these books called How to Get Into the Moment. You know? They were selling a lot, the self-help books. So the first one was How to Get Into the Moment. Then the next one was How to Get Really in the Moment. And the next one is How to Really, Really Get in the Moment. But they're all predicated on an insane idea you could be out of a moment. I totally believe you cannot be out of a moment that you've been in. There's no way you've ever been out of any moment. So why the hell would you want to try to get into something you can't be out of? And the same way, none of us are truly in self. Then why the hell do you want to try to get out of it so much? Realize you're not in it, and that's being out of it. You can't get out of self as self. When you realize you're not self, that's the experience of being out of self. So the fourth step to me was seeing how self defeated me. You'll see the patterns. Why? Because when I share it with the person, my sponsor is going to illuminate some of those patterns. And of course, I'm not doing it just with my sponsor. There's always the trinity of the higher power, me and him or her, yeah? Without the trinity, it doesn't work to me. So there's the higher power, everybody, if you want to call it. I would say it's us, truly, but. And there, so I'm sharing it with them, and he illuminates it. And what happens is, you know, I go home and do 6 and 7, but then 6 and 7 becomes the bulk of the fucking activity, the rest of your sobriety, because more is revealed. And now you see stuff, yeah? You see stuff that you would never see. You would see after the consequences in the past, yeah? But now you see it in the blueprint room, and you go, hey, I'm entirely ready to have this, and it's really important to catch it when it's right coming out of the oven. You don't want to be a forensic unit that goes over it months later. You'd like to catch it as it's coming out, and you go, hey, I'm entirely ready to have this, it's steaming, hot, removed, and I ask that powder to remove it. And I don't limit it to my experience, because it's our alcoholism. So when I'm at a meeting and I hear someone share, and it triggers, hey, you know, a possibility or a yet in me, I do the same 6 and 7 right there. I hear that from them because there's no different. Their alcoholism and this alcoholism, the same alcoholism. I go, what? I'm entirely ready to have this that I'm hearing removed, and I ask that power to remove it. So to me, 6 and 7 are the working steps now, completely. Yeah, because if you do enough inventory, you won't need to do that much inventory. Yeah, because you'll be freed from the need to do inventory, because there won't be that many resentments coming up, and there won't be your basis won't be anxiety anymore. Yeah, so 6 and 7 is to me the living program now, and I use it and I like it at a meeting because there's so much energy of that loving God expressing itself in our group conscience. It's like a booster rocket. I just put it on there and fucking 6 and 7 go. So we can learn from other people's mistakes, yes? We can learn from other alcoholics greatly, and that learning goes right to 6 and 7 to me. So the sixth and the fifth step, again, the hearing it is, this, you know, to me, when you lead someone through the steps, you get the steps in a whole new light. And I love the step 5 because it's the holding the space for the person, yeah? To be all that they're truly not, which is the gloriousness of it, yeah? Let it all. See, if you don't want to be a fraud, you'll feel like one all fucking day. If you just let all the shit land, it will reveal not to be you. But if you keep trying to deny it as not you, it'll be more you than ever. That's the different logic. The mental logic is, oh, I'll just forget about it. It'll seem to be gone, but it ain't, is it? This logic is, fucking let it be as real as it wants to be, and it will reveal itself not to be revealed. And what will be left standing? See, when the selfing stops, you continue. When selfing stops, you're there. And after a while, you realize you've always been there. Yeah? That which you are has never not been that which you are. Nor will it ever not be that which you are. It's beautiful, really. So, again, the conscious contact thing is a great example of the mental claiming, because they're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, and I'm looking out this window, and therefore I'm going to see whatever shows up. And there's no volition in seeing. Yeah? I can't say I'm not going to see a bird because I'm probably going to see one here. Yeah? And if you watch when people describe, let's say, feelings, they'll just say, oh, I didn't want to feel that, but they felt it already. The feeling happens first, yeah? And then the mental process shows up later to claim the feeling. This is the trick. You got to see it, because it plays with time differently than we believe time is. In the mental state, how the mental state works is that which comes after implies it's before. Yeah? So here's conscious contact, and then so I'm seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, and then the mental process arises and says, I'm the seer, the hearer, the feeler, the taster, and toucher. So suddenly, this being presupposed here goes, and now I believe I'm the one who's seeing, yeah? Or thinking, let's say. And then, when there's the feeling that I'm the thinker, there's an assumption I should have some power over what I'm thinking. And then we run into a lot of frustration when we're up in the middle of the night thinking about the next day. When we said a prayer when we went to sleep, please, I don't want to have any thoughts from 11 p.m. till 8 a.m. tonight. Tomorrow's so important. Please, give me this one gift. No thoughts for 9 hours. And then you're up at 12. Because why wouldn't, if they're my thoughts, wouldn't they listen to me? But they seem to run fucking rampantly wild. Why? Because they're not your thoughts. They're just thoughts being generated, yeah, over and over again. And then the self is claiming them to bind you to the thinker. If you see this as a prison, you'll never get out of it. If you see it as prisoning, you'll never be in it. Yes? If you see it as a prison, you'll never get out of it. If you see it as prisoning, you'll never be in it. That's the whole point. We're taking something to be so that isn't so. We're giving it a reality it doesn't have. And if the shoe fits, wear it, you know. This is just my humble experience with it. I call them downloads. Things happen and shit's revealed. And a lot of the shit's been revealed to me is just reverse engineering of how it seemed to have been. And because when it dawns on you, when in a way you get what they would call a sudden awakening, which isn't one really, but let's just say there is, when it downloads, it tells you it's always been this way. In a way, nothing ever happened. So this was really like a dreaming. I swear, yeah. And then suddenly, the dreaming continues, but something has changed a little bit. You're now traveling lighter as the action figure, yeah. And after years of traveling lighter as the action figure, you realize, what more do you want? That's all you really ever wanted here. You gave it names, but really, if you felt a contentment and a satisfaction right where you are, that would be fucking more than enough. And when it says, when I say traveling lighter, it doesn't mean everything's going to go great. It means whatever the geography of your life is in store for you, you'll travel lighter over it. Like your wife getting cancer or whatever, getting fired. These things will happen, but you'll travel lighter over it. And after a period of time, you realize, what? Really? That's the fucking highest gift I could ever have. And it's going to be generated right where you are. You're going to be the source of the light you've been looking for. Yeah. So therefore, your higher power now is always available at all times, right where you are, with no requirement necessary to meet it. That's something reliable. Then you can actually live the life as an expression, meaning this action figure that we're not, of perhaps there's a better way, trusting something infinite rather than finite self. And how do you trust finite self? By believing the thoughts that it's generating. That's how you're in the act of trusting it. Seriously, yeah. So so 6 and 7. So 8, I made a list, yeah. That's pretty simple. But I did a list where I'll go to the roots of, the nuts and bolts. The list for me with my sponsor was just things I would never do, things I'll do now, amends. Because I had these 2 warrants out for my arrest in Alameda, which was had a really fucking bad jail in that town, Santa Rita, that county. Fucking notorious place. I've been there once, I never wanted to go there again. So I didn't want to deal with that, but I dealt with some of the shit, all right? So then 9th step, I went there, and really a lot of them found me. I'd been conveniently avoiding most of my amends for years, and suddenly they found me. I mean, I'd be driving, I'd see someone I owe money to. My first reaction was turning, but then I'd pull over and go, hey, $45 for that phone bill I stiffed you with. Shit like that. I mean, I saw people across the way at concerts, oh fuck, I owe money. Things would just happen. And 9th, in my experience, was the greatest effect of the steps, was 9th. Because I truly lived in the past by avoiding it most of the time. Yeah, and there was an example I used to use. I lived in San Francisco, and we had an area called North Beach. Had a great meeting on Thursday night. But in North Beach, like most of San Francisco, parking was at a premium. Very difficult to find a parking space. So I go there every Thursday night. But I never drive down this one street because there was a market called Rossi's Market on it. And I used to live in North Beach, and I stole from there like every day. I'd get 2 long, beers and then a flat steak with a long jacket and not run out. It never caught me for like 6 months. And so I never wanted to see that market because as long as I was anywhere else in the city, I never thought about it. But when I got to North Beach, I thought about that fucking market. So I wouldn't park there. So one day I finally said, I'm gonna freaking go make the amends. So I went in there, the guy goes, I go, where's the manager? He's upstairs. I go upstairs, I say, hey, listen, I used to live around here, I stole a lot of stuff. I'm gonna give you $55. I don't know why I came with that number. Yeah, so I gave it to him. What happened, I walked out of there, I never thought of Rossi's Market again. Yeah. The failed system dealing with Rossi's Market was avoiding that street at all costs. You know what I mean? It was occupying a lot of space in my little fucking storage unit. Dead space. And then security guards. Everything like that. As soon as I made the amends, all that space was opened up and I never thought about Rossi's Market again. That's the fucking power of not regretting your past or not shutting the door on it. You feel the incredible infinite space of it all. Yeah. So the amends to me were more of what I am showed up in my life then. That's what happened. Yeah. I wasn't looking behind my shoulder. And I was at a meeting the other night and people were talking about shame. And really what I wanted to do, I wanted to keep doing shameful things but not feel shame. It wasn't working, you know what I mean? It's like when I'm talking to a sponsee, I'm always concerned when I'm driving about the cops. And he said, you have a fucking suspended license? Yes, that's why. Fucking go to DMV and that fucking fear will be gone because now you'll have a valid license. So, but I want to have I don't want to have the fear, but I keep doing what I'm doing. But no. So in that sense, I started to do all those esteemable shit, and I started to feel better as what I'm not, and that allowed me to finally start really entertaining what I'm not and find out what I am. But if you are so engaged in what you're not, you're never going to really see it as what you're not. You got to let the action. See, I need guardrails for the action figure. My Ford veers to the right. Yeah. I need GOD rails to keep me on the road. That's what I love about AA, because people can get sober. You just can't stay sober in time. There'll be times that are going to really fuck you up. You need a way of life. And the way of life, the main pavement of the way of life is habit. Yeah. The first year, my greatest insurance policy was produced in the first year. Because if the problem resides in the mind, in the thoughts, you don't want the thoughts to have a lot to say about your sobriety. And so I need habits which are actions without thoughts. So I don't think about going to an AA meeting, I think about which one, yeah? I'm in the habit of taking care of myself, which is fucking great. Because 30 years of sobriety is freaking nice. Because a lot of the shit that won't come up, if you're going in and out, will come up. More will be revealed, and you'll see it in the light of 6 and 7, and there'll be a reconfiguring of it, basically. Because energy can't get removed, it just gets reconfigured, yeah? So your past gets reconfigured, and then your interest and attention gets freed from that dead preoccupation, and now you're awake now. So you're quite awake here. Yeah, it's cool, I think. So, all right, so that's 9. Step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when you're wrong, promptly admit it. I love inventories because they will lead to not having to take inventories. See, we ran into a group, we had a cult in AA in San Francisco called the Pod People. I don't know if you ever knew them. They were people who did this thing. They wrote a letter to God that had all the 12 steps every day, and they had notebooks with pens, and they wrote their fears all day. And they would sort of come to my workshop and attack me at times. And then one night after the talk, I talked to them, they saying, but I said, you know what, I'd rather outgrow fucking fear. I don't want to manage it. I want to live to a point where I don't need to fucking take in fear inventories. What's the point? Because you're wanting to find fear, you'll find fucking fear. I want to be free from all that shit. I don't want to become a great manager of alcoholism. I want to be freed from alcoholism. So step 10, I do it today. When something happens, I do it in my head, yeah, and then I share it with the last lady I lived with. She had more time than me. I would just share it with her, and then I make an amend. It's simple, but that's like once every couple of months now, yeah. And so it's weird, like when you were out there using, that's when you needed to be highly observant, and you weren't. And now that you're sober, you want to be highly observant when you don't need to fucking be. I mean, really, maybe in the first couple of years you're on probation, but you're relieved sooner or later. I mean, I don't investigate every intention, when I go to the coffee. What's behind me wanting a fucking soy latte? Not much. I just like soy latte. I'm not reviewing a lot of shit. And there's a lot of people I work with, I had to tell them to stop fucking taking inventories and start enjoying your sobriety. Because it turns into a self-help program, and it's not. See, why do you hear the statement in AA, self-knowledge avails you nothing? Have you ever thought of that one? Ever entertained that? What the hell does that fucking mean? You would think knowledge would avail you quite a lot, and knowledge does, but any knowledge claimed by self will avail you nothing. See, so self-knowledge doesn't go anywhere. Knowledge of self goes somewhere. There's a great Zen master from Japan would say that to study Buddhism is to study self, and to study self is to forget self. See, if you study self, you'll see that it's not you, and in seeing that it's not you, you'll lose interest in it. Just like if I was here doing this talk, which I am, and there was a woman's retreat, which we'd much rather be at over here, and a lady that I'm interested in was a speaker there, and I already have an idea I'm going to go biblical with her, and I have kids and everything. I haven't even said hello to her. And I'm supposed to be doing this talk, and people are talking, and then people notice I don't seem to really be here because I'm interested in what she's doing in there. So they say, Paul, you should pay attention. You're here, and I want to, but my intention's there. So then someone comes up and puts a book on the table, says how to lose an interest in a conversation in another room. I believe the principles, but I can't follow through because I'm really keen. And suddenly she says something, and I'm really fucking keen on it. And she says, I like that guy, Matt, and my name is Paul. What happens? I lose interest immediately in that conversation. Immediately. I don't have to send Navy SEAL 16 to retrieve my attention. It comes right back here because it's not about me. It'd be amazing if we could treat that shit that's going on up there as not about me. You would have space with it, really space. and you would travel lighter on a stabilized level. And you would have a sense of surrender. You would not be in any argument of the fact that you're not managerial quality, that you're better directed than directing. Better being led than leading. Even if you're leading others, you're still in the state of being led. Because I have never shown up to any talk I've ever shown up to. Since this first time this started happening in AA, my experience of it was I had a 4th step workshop every Monday for years and years. And every Monday, that's a lot of Mondays over many, many years. I was in a lot of different conditions before the talk. One time, I was waiting to hear if I had AIDS or not when I first got sober. Another time, my girlfriend left, sick as hell, this and that. But every time I went in there and I was willing to be the hose, the water came through. And while it came through, all of my physical concerns, emotional concerns, mental concerns that were occupying me were dismissed completely for that hour. Completely. And maybe they'd come back, but when they came back, there was something happened. I realized if that could disappear so quickly, how real could it have been? And when it disappeared, I was still there. And when everything disappears, you're still there. So I realize there's a statement in a book or in the program that says you have to have it to give it away. I believe if you're willing to give it away, you'll have it. I believe that's the whole thing. Yeah? So I was willing to be of service, and therefore service was had. It had nothing to do with my fucking condition. So that thing of, if God can do for you what you can't do for yourself, expand the fucking idea of what you can't do for yourself. Are we having a break soon? No? Do we go to lunch soon? Dinner? Whatever? Yeah? Can we do it now? I think it's a good place to stop. Yes?